Marc Márquez was 17 years old when the one thing that made him special threatened to take everything away. He was fearless, brutally fast, and almost incapable of backing down. In 2010, that instinct carried him to 5 consecutive victories and pushed him within reach of the 125 cubic centimeter World Championship. But by the final race in Valencia, speed had become dangerous. One mistake, one desperate overtake, or one moment of contact could destroy an entire season. Marquez had arrived on the world stage at just 15, reached the podium only 6 races later, and started breaking records before most riders his age were even taken seriously. Now, for the first time, he had something worth protecting. A championship, a place in history, and a future that could change motorcycle racing forever. The problem was simple. Marquez had never learned how to ride cautiously. Where others protected their position, he attacked. Where they saw danger, he saw an opening. And as the engines fired up in Valencia, the greatest threat to his dream was not another rider. It was the instinct inside him that refused to slow down. Could he control it long enough to become a champion? Or would the future king of MotoGP destroy his own story before it had truly begun? Marc Márquez had already proven he was fast. But in 2011, speed alone could not save him. During his first Moto2 season, Stefan Bradl built an enormous 82-point championship lead. Marquez had almost no room left for mistakes. He needed victories, and he needed them immediately. His response was ruthless. He won 6 of the next 7 races, turning what looked like a finished championship into a real fight. But just as the title came within reach, a practice crash in Malaysia caused serious vision problems and forced him to miss the final races. Bradl became champion, while Marquez was left with nothing but the knowledge that he had come close enough to win. In 2012, he returned stronger. This time, he survived a season-long battle with Pol Espargaro and secured the Moto2 world title. Yet his most unforgettable performance came in the final race at Valencia. Starting from 33rd on the grid, Marquez had almost the entire field ahead of him. The moment the race began, he attacked. He gained 20 positions on the first lap, cutting through traffic under braking and taking gaps that disappeared within seconds. One mistake could have ended everything. But Marquez continued forward until he reached the lead and won. It was more than a comeback. It was a warning to MotoGP. In 2013, Repsol Honda promoted Marquez to the Premier class to replace Casey Stoner. Now he had to face experienced champions such as Dani Pedrosa, Jorge Lorenzo, and Valentino Rossi on faster, more demanding motorcycles. But Marquez did not enter MotoGP to watch and learn. After reaching the podium in Qatar, he won at the Circuit of the Americas and became the youngest Premier Class winner in history at 20 years and 63 days old. 4 consecutive victories followed, transforming his rookie season into a championship campaign. Then, a disqualification in Australia placed everything at risk. The title would be decided at Valencia, where Marquez needed only 3rd place. For a rider known for constant aggression, the hardest challenge was no longer attacking. It was knowing when to stop. Marquez controlled his speed, avoided unnecessary risks, and finished 3rd. At only 20 years old, he became the youngest MotoGP world champion in history. And he did it during his rookie season. But his next title defense began with another obstacle. Before the 2014 season, Marquez broke his right leg during training and lost valuable preparation time. There were doubts about whether he would be ready for the opening race in Qatar. He returned anyway and won. Then he won again and again. Marquez opened the season with 10 consecutive victories, dominating different tracks, conditions, and rivals. He secured his second MotoGP championship with 3 rounds remaining and finished the year with 13 wins, breaking Mick Doohan's previous record of 12 victories in a Premier Class season. In only 2 years, Marquez had gone from fearless rookie to the rider everyone wanted to defeat. But domination created a new danger. The more often he pushed beyond the limit and survived, the more he believed he could always do it again. In 2015, crashes in Argentina, Italy, and Catalonia showed that even Marquez could not escape every mistake. His greatest strength had always been his refusal to slow down. Now, that same instinct was beginning to become his greatest threat. Marc Márquez's biggest improvement after 2015 was not becoming faster. It was learning when to stop attacking. His crashes in Argentina, Italy, and Catalonia exposed the weakness inside his aggressive style. Marquez could brake later and place more pressure on the front tire than almost anyone, but that left almost no room for correction. In 2016, he changed his approach. Instead of risking everything for every victory, he accepted valuable points when the danger became too high. While his rivals made costly mistakes, Marquez stayed consistent and secured another MotoGP championship. In simple terms, Marquez stopped trying to win every corner and started trying to win the entire season. His ability to save crashes with his knee and elbow often made him appear almost impossible to defeat. But those recoveries still depended on grip, balance, and perfect reactions. Between 2017 and 2019, he combined that extraordinary control with smarter race management. He knew when to attack, when to protect his tires, and when second place was more valuable than a dangerous attempt at victory. The result was complete dominance. In 2019, he scored 420 points, won 12 races, and finished 151 points ahead of his closest rival. But there is one detail almost everyone is missing. Marquez had not moved away from the limit. He had simply become better at controlling it. Then Jerez 2020 changed everything. While charging back through the field, Marquez crashed heavily and broke his right arm. Multiple surgeries followed, and the rider who once controlled almost every slide returned with a weaker body and a Honda that was becoming harder to manage. Everything points to the balance between rider, motorcycle, and physical strength being lost. He could still produce brilliant victories at Sachsenring, Austin, and Misano, proving that his natural speed had not disappeared. But 22 crashes in 14 races showed how much risk was now required to reach that speed. This could mean that Marquez was still trying to ride with the instincts of his dominant years, while his body and motorcycle could no longer support that style consistently. The return of double vision and the decision to undergo a fourth operation proved that determination alone could not solve the problem. His next challenge was no longer defeating another rider. It was discovering how to remain fast without forcing his body beyond its limits. If he could recover that balance, his victories showed that he still had the ability to fight at the front. But if every competitive lap continued to demand extreme risk, one more serious accident could change not only his next season, but the rest of his career. For 1,043 days, Marc Márquez had waited for this moment. At Aragon, the waiting finally ended. He controlled the race, managed the pressure, and crossed the line as a MotoGP winner once again. It was not just another victory added to his career. It was proof that the rider who had survived injuries, repeated surgeries, vision problems, and years of doubt could still finish a race at the front. For a long time, Marquez had shown flashes of his old speed. A pole position in Japan, a milestone podium in Australia, strong qualifying performances and aggressive battles. But those moments never lasted long enough to become real momentum. Aragon was different. This time, he did not simply look competitive. He converted speed into victory. The talent had never completely disappeared. What had been missing was the confidence, physical freedom, and machinery needed to use it without fighting for survival in every corner. That is what made his decision to leave Honda so important. Marquez walked away from the team that had given him 6 MotoGP championships and 59 victories, even though 1 year remained on his contract. He gave up factory security and joined Gresini on a satellite Ducati, knowing there was no guarantee the move would restore his career. If he struggled, critics could say his best years were gone. If he succeeded, he would prove that the problem had not been a lack of talent. Aragon changed the meaning of that gamble. It showed that leaving Honda was not an act of desperation. It was a calculated attempt to escape a situation that no longer allowed him to compete at his true level. The Ducati required him to adapt. He could not simply ride it like the Honda. He had to change his corner entry, understand how the bike delivered grip, and become more patient when attacking. That adjustment may be the most important part of his comeback. Marquez was not just recovering his old form. He was learning how to win in a new way. The most important part is not what happened today. It is what the victory made possible. Marquez's performances convinced the factory Ducati team to place him beside Pecco Bagnaia for 2025. That decision could affect the entire championship. Ducati would now have 2 riders capable of winning, but only one could become the clear leader inside the garage. Bagnaia already understood the motorcycle, the team, and the pressure of defending a title. Marquez brought experience, aggression, and the belief that he could rebuild his career from almost nothing. Their rivalry could push Ducati forward, but it could also create difficult moments if both riders begin fighting for the same points. Everything Marquez had endured had led to this opportunity. He had already proved that he could win again. The real question begins now. Can he turn one emotional comeback victory into a complete championship campaign? If he fully adapts to the factory Ducati, he may become even more dangerous. But to defeat Bagnaia across an entire season, Marquez will need more than raw speed. He will need consistency, patience, and the discipline to know when a risky attack is worth it. Did leaving Honda save the final years of his career? Or are we watching the beginning of a completely new Marquez era? Tell me what you think in the comments. Subscribe for more MotoGP stories told like battles, and share this video with another racing fan.